It has been a stunning 6 days since America elected Donald Trump as its 45th president. Those who fear what it might mean have taken to the streets in some cities. The president-elect himself was asked about those protesters during an interview that aired on 60 Minutes on Sunday.
Don't be afraid. We are going to bring our country back, but certainly don't be afraid. You know, we just had an election, and sort of like you have to be given a little time. I mean, people are protesting. If Hillary had won, and if my people went out and protested, everybody would say, oh, that's a terrible thing. And it would have been a much different attitude. There is a different attitude. You know, there's a double standard here.
Just one soundbite from a wide-ranging interview that touched on gay marriage, the wall that Trump has said he wants to build along the U.S.-Mexico border, a number of other issues. And I want to tack now with two of our CNN political commentators, Donald Trump supporter Jeffrey Lord and Democratic strategist Paul Begala. Jeffrey, I want to ask you about this first, because something Donald Trump said there really sticks out to me. He said, if my people were to protest, he means his supporters. But he is now the president-elect. Aren't they all his people?
Well, sure, they're all his people, but Brianna, I mean, I have been around. My gray hair betrays me. I remember when the American left was doing this to Lyndon Johnson and poor Hubert Humphrey in 1968. This is what they do. In our day, it's Occupy Wall Street or Black Lives Matter. They go out on the street and they protest and they break windows sometimes, or they get violent. This is what they do. Donald Trump is just merely the latest opportunity to do this.
I mean, I've seen this on both sides. I certainly hear what you're saying about the violence, but I've covered Tea Party protests on Capitol Hill where people spit on members of Congress, where African-American members of Congress were called slang terms, racist slang terms. So I want to know what you think,
There's
Paul.
no place for this, Brianna, period. I
No,
mean, there's no place for racism in American life, period.
There certainly is no place for it. What do you
Sure.
think Democratic leaders need to do when we're looking at what's happening? And I will tell you, I watched a protest march through Washington, D.C. I did not see violence. I saw people actually joining, and it is a Democratic town.
I was thinking of
saw
Portland,
people
Oregon.
joining as it went. It certainly didn't seem like it was a professional situation as Donald Trump described. But I wonder what you want to hear from Democrats when it comes to these protests.
Well, when I mentioned violence, I was thinking of Portland, Oregon, where apparently there has been some violence. Look, I protested when I was in college myself. So I'm not against protest. That's part of democracy. I'm just skeptical here that this is all because of Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is just sort of the latest deal here. And as far as the reference to Steve Bannon, I just want to say, you know, I know Steve Bannon, and he's being very, very unfairly characterized here, among other things, as anti-Semitic. I mean, a bigger Zionist you will not find. And he's a huge fan of Bibi Netanyahu, a major supporter of Israel. So, I mean, it's a gross mischaracterization.
Isn't it also true, though, that through Breitbart, under sort of him overseeing that, I mean, you also had headlines that called out people for being Jewish. So it's sort of, I see what you're saying, but I'm also seeing that.
The headline you're referring to, which referred to Bill Kristol as a quote-unquote renegade Jew, was written by David Horowitz, who is Jewish. And what you had here, and I certainly know Bill Kristol and love him to death, but I just disagree with him here. And I know David. And David's point in this was that Bill Kristol and the Never Trumpers were, in essence, abandoning Israel by voting for Hillary Clinton or not supporting Donald Trump. That's hardly anti-Semitic. I mean, David Horowitz, again, is Jewish. So, and there are Jews who are employed in senior positions at Breitbart. So I mean, it's a bad knock.
So you reject that, and I want to get in something that we heard from Dave Chappelle, who I thought said something pretty interesting, and a lot of people have paid attention to this during his opening monologue for SNL over the weekend.
These people who had been historically disenfranchised, and it made me feel hopeful, and it made me feel proud to be an American, and it made me very happy about the prospects of our country. So, in that spirit, I'm wishing Donald Trump luck, and I'm going to give him a chance, and we, the historically disenfranchised, demand that he give us one too. Thank you very much.
Jeffrey, I know many in your camp must have been surprised when they heard that. He's talking about African Americans being historically disenfranchised and now being so included in the White House, a house that was built by slaves where black folks used to not even be allowed to go. And he said something that it seemed as if he was sort of bridging the divide, but also standing up for his position. What did you think?
Well, I'll take him up on it. You know, the White House was in fact built by slaves, but so was the Democratic Party and the American left. I mean, slavery was the backbone of their political strength when they launched, and then they kept at it with segregation and lynching and all the rest. And my objection here is that the historically disenfranchised have been disenfranchised by the Democratic Party, and they still are at it with race, with racial quotas and support for illegal immigration by skin color. I mean, this is all about racial obsession. It's wrong. This is the party of Lincoln that's going to be back in the White House here, and Jack Kemp, my old boss, Jack Kemp, and I look forward to taking Dave Chappelle up on that. I think that's terrific.
Paul, your reaction?
History is important, but so are current events.